Welcome to Betrayal Recovery Radio, the official podcast of APSATS, the Association of Partners of Sex Addict Trauma Specialists, hosted by Dr. Jake Porter. APSATS is a nonprofit organization providing professional training and compassionate support to partners affected by problematic sexual behavior and betrayal trauma. In each episode, Dr. Jake guides a conversation of enlightening insights and practical tools to empower those affected by sex addiction and betrayal trauma to use their voices and live their values. The mission of Betrayal Recovery Radio is to offer hope to those in need of healing and growth to those moving through grief. And now, here's your host, Dr. Jake Porter.
I am Jake Porter, and this is Betrayal Recovery Radio. In a world where trust can be a fragile commodity, betrayed partners find themselves at a crossroads. Confronted with the painful aftermath of betrayal, many feel stuck and confused. They don't want to be defined by betrayal, but they feel traumatized, confused, isolated. In Betrayal Trauma Recovery, they embark on a courageous journey to break free from the shackles of hurt and deceit. Through resilience and unwavering determination, betrayed partners choose to heal the wounds, not just of their hearts, but quite possibly their relationships as well. These individuals become living testimonies to the power of interdependence, clarity, and truth, proving that even the most shattered hearts can mend with patience, understanding, and the choice to heal. This is exactly what I'll be talking about today as I share a conversation that took place last year during our Choose Connection Summit between Andrea Rogers as she interviewed Stacey Sadler Smith. Stacey is a licensed professional counselor, EMDR certified therapist, and she is a CSAT as well. She is the chief clinical officer for my practice, Daring Ventures Counseling, and she is also a trainer for APSATS, the Association of Partners of Sex Addict Trauma Specialists. I'll talk more about the training that she's a part of in just a few minutes. But Stacey is passionate about advocating for partners of sex addicts by helping them to find their voice. And so I'm excited to share this conversation with you. You're going to get a lot out of it. Before we turn there, though, I want to let you know a few things that APSATS has going on that may be of interest to you. Coming up on April the 4th, Sarah Morales, one of our board members, is going to be doing a continuing education learning time, the gaslighting equipped professional, assessing for the signs of your practice. And so that's going to be a 1-hour event via Zoom, I believe. And then later in the month of April, Jessica Edens, another one of our board members, will start a series that'll take place on Thursdays via Zoom from April 17th through May 1st on betrayed families, support for children and families, a training for those who help these populations. Let me mention to you again the cornerstone training of APSATS, the multidimensional partner trauma model training, which will be offered again live via Zoom in June 17th through the 20th. Stacey is one of the trainers for this multidimensional partner trauma model training. If you work with this population or you desire to do so, if you work in the field of betrayal, those who've been betrayed, couples who are experiencing the consequences of discovered betrayal, I cannot recommend this training highly enough to you. This 4-day training is powerful in laying a foundation for how you can support these individuals and couples through this experience. We do have a few thank yous to you for being a part of this podcast and listening to us. I do have a book that I wrote recently, Breaking Barriers, Building Bridges, the Couple-Centered Recovery Model for Lasting Connection After Betrayal, which you can get for free at my website, drjakeporter.com, or you can find the link down in the show notes below. And also APSATS, this is the official APSATS podcast. APSATS has a gift for you as well. And that is a free download from Dr. Crystal Hollenbeck called Expectations. What should the betrayed expect from the betrayer in the therapeutic process? To claim that free gift, you can go to apsats.org/podcast. That link is also in the show notes below. All right. Without further ado, let's turn now to this conversation with Andrea Rogers and Stacey Sadler.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Andrea Rogers, and I'm so excited to be sitting here with someone who is probably not a stranger to you. She's definitely not a stranger to me. But in the event you're new to the Choose Connection Summit, I'm delighted to introduce Stacey Sadler. Stacey is a licensed counselor. She's EMDR certified. She's a certified sex addiction therapist. She's the chief clinical officer for Daring Ventures and also the trainer for APSATS, teaching coaches and clinicians the multidimensional partner trauma model. Stacey is very passionate about helping partners of sex addicts to heal and those who are suffering from betrayal trauma. She has been advocating for partners of sex addicts for a very long time. Stacey has served for many years as a group facilitator for New Life Ministries at their workshop. She's the keynote speaker for the Restore workshop and serves on the board for New Life. As you can tell, Stacey's very busy. Stacey utilizes the attachment theory from How We Love as a couple-centered recovery to help couples understand how wounds from the past impact their relationships today. She also uses the couple-centered recovery model with Daring Ventures to help couples heal as well. She recently co-authored Understanding and Loving Your Child as a Single Parent with Steve Otterburn. And if you haven't figured out, she's no longer Stacey Sadler. She's Stacey Sadler Smith because she is a newlywed and enjoying life as a newlywed in Galveston, Texas. Welcome, Stacey Smith.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Thanks for correcting that.
Yeah, I was going to use it as like some people may know, but some people may not.
Right.
So this is the beginning of people knowing you as Stacey Sadler Smith. So this really is like a new you joining, even though you've been on the summit many times.
That's right. That's right. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. It's just exciting. Always exciting to talk with you. We've done this a time or two before, and it's fun and it's always engaging. So I hope our audience will really love it and enjoy it today.
Yep. And I'm excited about what you're going to be talking about because I think it's going to be very relevant to a lot of partners who are in the process of trying to heal. You're talking about resilience in the storm, really focusing on like 8 barriers, but also some solutions to overcoming those barriers. So why don't you say a little bit more about that?
Well, I know, Andrea, you help people just like I do every day, and we find people who hit these bumps
Hmm.
in the road, and it's like there's hindrances to speaking up and to finding your voice and becoming empowered in this process for partners. And so I like to point them out so that people can say, is this where I am losing my strength and losing my empowerment? Is this an area I really need to work on? And then I offer solutions for each area. And I think it opens the mind up to say, what is my process, and is this one of the places that I'm stuck? But
Hmm.
we see all kinds of things. One thing that I see a lot are spiritual misbeliefs. Uh,
Mm.
of just what we're supposed to believe, what we're supposed to do as wives. We work with a lot of Christian wives who believe that submission keeps them to, win them over without a word and things like that. And I always talk about spiritual trauma, in
Uh,
the, I
you
know,
just saying that I was like,
I know. And I wish if I had a PowerPoint, you'd see a woman with tape over her mouth, or you would see, gentle, quiet spirit, and all these
Mhm.
Proverbs 31 women, which I know for me, and I bet for you too, there were some of that thinking that contributed to these misbeliefs. And not that those things aren't true in some ways, but it really can keep a trade partner stuck. So there are those kinds of things. There are blocking beliefs about like having emotions is weak, or
Mm.
fear. There's some of those things like that. But other than that, I have boiled it down to several things I want to talk about. One thing is confusion. Confusion is just one of the things that happens because of betrayal trauma. It's like, um, you know, what is my role when I'm finding out that this other person is so messed up? Like, am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to do that? I know in my own story, I was so confused about what reality was about. And because there was gaslighting, which I'm going to talk about in a minute,
Sure.
and all the confusion, it's like, what really happened? We talk about putting together an assumptive reality. Your assumptive reality is knowing who you are
Hmm.
and where you fit in the world.
What do
And
you think most betrayed partners' assumptive reality is?
oh my gosh, oh, I'm a wife who has a husband that's a good man, and he's going to be doing what's best for me and doing best for what the
Hmm.
relationship is. And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden, it
Right.
blows up, and there might have been blips along the way of, are is this right? I'm confused. The betrayed partner will say to their spouse, "What are you talking about? Like, everything's fine." And so again, that just contributes to that assumptive reality. Everything's fine, yet that sense of self, like something's
Hmm.
not right, but he says it's right, and I really want it to be right. I like the good picture of
Hmm.
everything looking right. I don't want to look at it not being real. So this is what brings me safety, is believing that it's a certain way. And
Right.
so when betrayal blows it up, it's all this confusion that starts happening. And um, you know, Dr. Jake talks about the hippocampus, and I'm trying to put that memory storage back together. And that's what this confusion is just like, what happened and what is my reality? Does he love me? And what is love anyway? And why did he do this? And all those questions that are really just grief. But that
Right.
confusion factor is such a problem. And if you don't find professionals that know what they're doing, you're going to be even more confused, because they're going to tell you things like, just he's not doing it anymore. Just give it up and trust if you want the relationship, or leave him, or they just throw out things so that don't help the process any. So I just want everybody that's listening to think about confusion being a big barrier.
For sure. There's no, I mean, even if you did premarital counseling, you checked all the boxes before you get married. There's no conversation around, hey, there's a possibility that your partner may be leading a double life, and here's what you do in that case.
You hear about that kind of stuff on reality TV or the Lifetime channel, but you never think that could be your life,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. So, yeah, confusion, I could definitely see being a big one. What else?
Fantasy.
Mm.
And fantasy is tough, but it's like, we are raised as little girls, and not that we always make the disclaimer, it's not always little girls that are betrayed. Sometimes it's men, but I'm going to be speaking to, even a man that wants to have a faithful spouse. But especially women are taught, the king takes his queen into the castle, the fairy tale life. And so of course that's what we all want. We don't
Mhm.
come into a relationship wanting it to be horrible, and I, for me, built a world of fantasy of what I wanted my relationship to be. And his lies and manipulation just fed that, because it fed right into my fantasy of what I wanted, just a little bit like the confusion.
Right.
Of course I'm being that stand-up guy, and of course I'm doing those things. But I was truly blind to my reality. I mean,
Mhm.
truly blind. Like, nothing in reality added up to like this future that I so earnestly wanted. And
Mhm.
I really believed that, well, this will lead to the next one, but I believed I could change it. I believed that I could change him if he just knew the answer, or if I just did the right thing. But I really just think that fantasy of, and you and I were just talking about a client very recently that just wants to stay and in that ideal,
Mhm.
because reality is awfully hard to see.
Sure. Very painful.
Yeah. I mean, I know I defined myself as a wife and mother. And so if I started seeing reality for what it really was, it meant my apple cart was going to be pretty darn upset.
Yeah, and I mean, the truth is, to your point, that that fantasy is presented as if it is reality.
That's
We
right.
don't know it's a fantasy until we step out of that story, until the blinders are pulled off of our eyes. But like you said, even in some religious spaces, it's sold as if you pray more, if you try more, if you give more, it feeding right into that fairy tale, or what I call the Beauty and the Beast syndrome, right? You love your beast, he's going to turn into a prince. It's
Mhm.
presented as if it's real.
That's right. That's right. And so it just feeds the narrative that you grew up wanting. And we're not
Yes,
um pathologizing anybody when we say it's a fantasy, because
right.
I think it's a good fantasy. And but
Yeah,
if it lacks truth, which you find out at discovery, it lacks truth.
right.
But some people want to stay in that mindset because they don't want to deal with the losses and the changes that come. And it's a tough thing to do, to accept reality.
Wow. Okay, you're starting off big with confusion and fantasy. You said that
Yeah.
leads into the next one. What's after that?
Well, I believe in codependency. I feel like I'm a codependent at heart. It's just my default setting to go toward codependency. And one of the things that happens is you tend to have a lack of objectivity when it comes to some codependency. So, no one gets married thinking they're going to get divorced, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I truly couldn't see myself as separate from him. I remember my therapist distinctly saying to me, Stacey, I'm doing EMDR, and she says, draw a circle around yourself and draw a circle around him. You're separate from him. And something about that visual,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, I saw it like this. It was an enmeshment in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this lack of objectivity about reality. And I used to do this exercise with people on codependency, even at, like, they will report from their family of origin that your parents were one way. But when you really challenge them on, okay, was your parent loving? Did they cherish you? Were they safe? Did they encourage you? They start going, oh, wow, no. And so we really start testing that objectivity to say, is this truly what you are thinking in your mind it
Mm-hmm.
is, or want it to be?
Mm-hmm.
So, I learned from my mom just to be a pleaser, to just
Mm-hmm.
be quiet and not speak up. Found out that my mom, she talked about the red nose she had. My father was an alcoholic. So I learned from my mom just to stuff it in and just keep going, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I find that yes, that is a barrier. Not every betrayed partner is codependent. And I don't even say that from the very beginning,
Right.
because that leads me into the next one, which is trauma. But I do believe codependency is based in trauma.
Right, right. And I'm glad you clarified that, because I was going to say, if you're new at discovery, in no way is Stacey saying you're codependent. She's just saying that in her years of work, this is one of the barriers that come up as partners do begin to heal, as they do their work, that, when you get to the stages in the partner trauma model and you're doing your own, growth, and what does it look like for me to move into the next stage, sometimes this codependency is a barrier that needs to be addressed in order to do that.
And yeah, and lots of clients come in, Andrea, and I'm sure to you too, saying, I know I'm codependent. They come in from the
Mhm.
beginning saying, I know I am. And we talk about that. What is that for you? What does
Mhm.
it look like for you?
Mhm.
Do you see yourself separate? I love when we start preparing them for disclosure, and we'll say, what are your bottom line behaviors and what's your plan B? And they look at me like, oh, I really need to think about what if he was doing the worst case scenario and how I'd be. And we say, yeah, that's what determines your resiliency. So
Yeah.
we look at some really hard stuff, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
I'm laughing because we just had this conversation.
I know.
Looking at reality is so tough,
Yeah.
but but we want to hide from it. But the truth is, that's where the work comes, is what would I do? Then we're looking in a mirror going, wow,
Mhm.
am
Mhm.
I as strong? What would it take to become as strong as I want to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's the work right there.
Yep, that is the work. All
Yeah.
right, keep going.
So trauma, I I was traumatized because I knew that if I spoke up, it would ignite his rage. So
Mhm.
everything was reinforced for me. When I realized that, if I spoke up, I was going to get in trouble one way or the other. And for me, um, kind of going backwards, I swear to you, in my recovery, there was a road sign, one of those light up programmable road signs that says, you know, I don't know, Gulf Bank exit,
Yeah.
next exit, construction, watch out. It said this is your life.
Wow.
Not kidding. And that was my sober wake up call of, oh my gosh, this is my life. I can't keep pointing saying it's his fault or his this, but him. I had to take responsibility for my own life.
Mhm.
And that was tough. But, I also knew that I had to walk through the fear and the trauma of speaking up. And we hear a lot of partners say they're scared. They're scared of
Yeah.
their partner's anger. They're scared he owns guns. What would I do? And so we've got to look at what is the thing. And if that's the thing that's keeping you held back, it's a very real thing. Most of my clients could be described as and diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And
Mhm.
I know those of you that have been around for a while know that. But a lot of people are shocked. They think that's just a diagnosis for veterans, but it's not. We find, and the word trauma is thrown around a lot, but my clients, by and large, meet the diagnostic criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder, and it is
Mhm.
a big deal. It causes health problems, it causes confusion, it causes like body, mind, soul, and spirit are affected by betrayal. And the
Sure.
longer the marriage, the longer the betrayal, the more profound the level of um, PTSD. So
Mhm.
trauma is a real, real barrier. And that's why sometimes I know on our Daring Ventures team, we talk a lot about Andre does brain spotting as a coach, but sometimes they need another level of care if they
Mhm.
have been in a traumatic situation for a long, long time. So they might need some EMDR or some very serious trauma treatment. And sometimes partners don't want to get the don't want the do the work for themselves because they say I didn't cause this, I didn't bring it on me. But this lady that I work with speaks, and we talked to Betrayed Partners. She talks a story about getting hit by a softball at 60 miles an hour
Mhm.
in a softball game, and she had a titanium plate put in, bruised, bloody. She posts pictures of that up and says, "Look, I didn't do this. I didn't cause this." But I had a choice what I was going to do to heal from it.
Mm.
Was I going to go in and get surgery? Was I going to go in and follow the doctor's orders? What was I going to do to heal? Was she mad? Heck yeah, she was mad that it happened to her. But she made a choice to take care of herself and heal. And that's what we encourage partners to do when they find out that they are suffering from betrayal trauma.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful illustration, but
I,
also empowering, right?
yeah.
Because it's like she didn't ask for the ball, but that doesn't mean that she was just left to be a victim to what happened to her either.
That's right. That's right. She was empowered to do, she had a choice and she could choose to do what she needed to do for herself.
Right.
And I'll
Okay.
sit
So,
with somebody through the pain. I will sit with somebody through the anger that I've got to freaking be here. And I said, I know, and it's expensive, and I know you hate it. I'll be right there with them in that pain because it does sting. It really
it
does.
does. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
There you go. So the next one is I don't trust myself. It's
Mm.
that internal thing that internal intuition that has been eroded because of trauma. And so you know, that sense of I just know something's not quite right, but I don't know what it is. And
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm going to try to put a voice to it, but I don't really trust myself to do that.
Mhm.
A lot of times that's because of gaslighting, being told that you're overreacting. I was told I was spoiled. I was an only child. I was
Mm.
spoiled. That I cried too much. I was always wanting to find problems and things. That never happened, calm down, all those you're crazy kind of things lead to that sense of not trusting ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this great example of that for me. Years ago, Dr. Sherry Keffer would always talk about brainwave optimization. And it's now called Saraset, but it was where you would go into the place and have the electrodes put onto your head, and it would read your brain waves, and the technology would change your brain waves into an acoustical melody, and then it's fed back to you through earphones. So you could
Wow.
hear your brain waves. And so I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, I'm going to go in and just try this, just have this. He had a little $99 special to do it once. And I said, I'm just going to do this before I refer my clients, because I found a place that did it in Galveston. And I went in to do it, and he said, I think you could benefit from the whole shebang. So I went in and did this. And it's supposed, the mirror neurons in your brain are supposed to balance out your brain so that you get a peaceful feeling and the trauma dissipates. And it worked for me. It was amazing. And afterwards, I was sitting in my happy place on the beach, and I was just thinking about, like, oh, I've never felt so free. I call it Garden of Eden peace.
Mm.
And I waded out into the water, and Galveston water is not known for its clarity. And I waded out this day. The water was so crystal clear, it was up into my waist, and I could actually see my feet.
Wow.
And I know. And as I walked out there, I started floating in the water, which was kind of part of my safe place, that I did as part of my healing and part
Mhm.
of that intensive. And I'm laying there, and all of a sudden I felt fear. And I thought to myself, what? I tried to pray it away, all this stuff. I just felt this as a fear, like a shark was going to get me or something. And I've never been scared of Galveston water. I literally got out of the water, went up to my car to see if I had a float, because I'm like, no, I was just not feeling fear a minute ago. What in the world happened? So I tried it again, and I'm laying in that water, feeling fear. And all of a sudden I said, this is ridiculous. I got to get out of the water. And right as I stepped out of the edge of the water, I felt a sting on my foot that was like horrible. And I looked down, my foot was bleeding, went to my chair, my beach chair, sat down, my foot had a little spot of blood on it. And I thought, did I step on a piece of glass? And I thought, no. And I didn't know what it was. And all of a sudden my foot started pulsing like this. And I realized something bad had happened, grabbed all my stuff. I might have said a prime word or two, just like partners do for the first time ever when they find out about betrayal. And I grabbed all my stuff, called my sister-in-law, and I said, I think I need to go to an urgent care. I don't think I can make it to Houston. And I walked in, and I just got shaky when I first walked in, and I was telling my story, and they put my foot into a thing of hot vinegar water. And immediately I felt better. And I had gotten hit by a stingray. And
Wow.
I was like, oh my gosh. And as I thought back, there was a moment when I walked into the water, and I was so euphoric from that whole week of doing this stuff. I thought I saw a flounder, because I'm a flounder fisherman. And I thought to myself, Stacey, that's so silly. You didn't see a flounder. You're just high on life right now. Well, think about how a flounder looks, a lot like a stingray.
Mm.
My subconscious mind knew something was in that water.
Yeah.
It
And
knew.
alerted you.
And so I thought all fear was bad. But real fear from true danger is bad. But the problem is trauma lies to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it tells you, like when your husband starts healing, you're hypervigilant. That's a symptom of PTSD. So it's like, is it true or is it not true? And sometimes we need somebody like a coach like Andrea or a therapist like me to walk through it and help us understand and how to listen to ourselves again, because all these false alarms are going off. The brain is very protective and is always trying to keep us safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So
So trusting yourself, I mean, that's so significant, because going back to what you said about the confusion and the fantasy, if I'm trying to be a good wife and I'm trying to be forgiving. I don't want to be bitter. I don't want to be seen as not giving my partner grace. Then me having boundaries or recognizing that I don't feel safe can push up against me being a quote unquote good wife.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
That's right. There's so much. There's so much. And that goes right into the next one, which is fear. But I think about coupled with both, I can't trust myself in fear. If you've been sexually abused, which I, find there's not a correlation, but I do find that a lot of my clients will come in and say, and I have sexual abuse in my past. And so the sense of trusting self has already been so eroded. So I just want to
Mhm.
speak to that. If that's part of your story, this will probably be a big barrier for you. And coming into this fear of like, how can I be alone? Like, fear is, there's so many things we can be fearful of losing fantasy. The fantasy of what we wanted, status, um, the idea of family, uh,
Mhm.
rejection, abandonment. Fear can be a big, 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 big barrier. I don't
Mhm.
want anything to be any different in my life, and I don't know how I would go forward. Usually there's a belief somewhere not far behind of I can't do it on my own. I need somebody. And that's, what we hit with eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR.
Mhm.
So fear is a huge barrier that I see as well.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that's 6. What are
Okay.
7 and 8?
7 and 8 are ignorance. 7 is ignorance. And I
Mm.
laugh because I say, I just want you to picture the selection of the library that we don't have access to. Sex addiction 101. Like we don't learn about that in school. Stop manipulation in its tracks, right? How to deal with the narcissist in your life. Deconstructing gaslighting. Nobody gets these courses before you get married or before you start dating. So we come into it just sort of like navigating blindfolded. I didn't know all this stuff existed. And a lot of my clients will say, Stacey, I was so naive before. Well, who wouldn't want to be naive to that? Like, who
Mhm.
wants to think that this could happen in your life?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, it's just something that we have to begin to learn to, and then we learn all this vocabulary and all this stuff that we never ever wanted to learn. But that's I'm going to talk about solutions in just a second, but that is one of the barriers. But that one's an easy fix.
Yeah. I mean, and ignorance has gotten a bad rap, but it simply means just that you don't know. And
Right.
if we don't know, being ignorant doesn't mean that we're stupid or that we're dumb. It just means that we need to gain more knowledge.
That's right. That's right. And it's we're ignorant to this world of sex
Yeah.
addiction.
Yeah.
I've never met a partner that doesn't believe they're stupid because they stay or because they didn't know or and risking to stay is, am I stupid giving this another shot?
Mhm.
And we dispel that belief. No, you're making a choice because A, B, C, D, lots of good reasons to make that choice.
Mhm.
A lot of
Mhm.
partners stay for a lot of reasons, even if her husbands aren't doing good work. And that's okay if that's what they choose to do, right?
Right.
It's not being stupid, but ignorance is definitely just ignorance to the fact that this world even exists.
Yeah, exactly.
The last one that I see a whole lot is isolation.
Mm.
And if you talk, you know, to very many of us very long, we're going to encourage you to get into a group. Because when you get into a group, all of a sudden, now you've got the Me Too factor.
Mhm.
Someone else sitting there going, yes, that happened to me.
Mhm.
Yes, I get it. Yes, I understand. And you look around the room and you see a whole bunch of other amazing people that are smart and talented and beautiful and all shapes, sizes, and colors. This is no restrictor of age, so anything. It happens to so many amazing people. And so getting with other people is so incredibly healing. But a lot of people they don't want to keep the secret, but it's what happens. And so if that's something that you recognize, I'm going to tell you the antidote to that.
I
So let's
love
go
it.
through starting at the beginning.
Yeah.
So healing the barriers. So the very first one is from confusion to clarity. And the way we get clarity is coming and getting help from a professional, talking to someone, something about saying it out loud, and then someone like Andrea being there to kind of help unravel it. I love that picture of a therapist or a coach kind of unraveling the jumble that's in their mind. And it's because the other person is objective.
Yeah.
Journaling helps, working through the steps, like with Infidelity Survivors Anonymous, clearing out some of that confusion and getting educated, is part of it. The next one is from fantasy to truth. One thing that was so helpful for me is to write down what was really true and what was really fantasy for me. Another way to do that would be like positives and negatives. Positives of staying the same, negatives of staying the same. Positives of change, negatives of change. Because there are two sides to every coin. But the fantasy to truth one was really good. You know, he's a good man. Oh, really? Is that fantasy or is that truth? And what makes up a good man for you? You know, so we look self-awareness and other awareness. What is it we're believing? And what is really the truth that's being displayed in front of me? Is what they're saying matching the feet? Or am I just believing the words? Always believe in the best. Boy, I credited that to, like, I'm gonna get a crown in heaven for believing the best, right?
Oh boy.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of years of that. But nothing changed
Yeah.
because the feet are moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from codependence to interdependence. So one thing that's important is to learn to be able, first, interdependence starts in believing about yourself. And your own abilities. One of the verses that I use for that, I'm a Christian, and if my client's a Christian, I always talk about Jeremiah 2:13. And it says, "For my people have done two evil things. They have abandoned me, the fountain of living water, and dug for themselves cracked cisterns that hold no water at all." And so I always talk about, you're looking for love in a cracked pot. And when I could see that pot as cracked, and then look elsewhere, myself, and for me, God, was part of me being okay with me. I had to be okay with me to learn to be interdependent with a healthy person.
Right.
Right. So moving from that place, doing the work, I did workbooks on codependency. I helped myself look and start to trust self again and believe in self again and believe that I was going to be okay, regardless of what happened on the other side of the street.
Yeah. And I mean, I think in order to get to that place to understand healthy interdependence, those first two are critical. Like you got to get some clarity and you do have to live in reality that, you can be, because if you don't believe that, if that's not part of the fantasy,
Yeah,
right, it seems impossible. So it's like these all kind of go together and build on each other.
they really do. And, for me, and that healthy independence, and I don't call it independence now, but learning things for myself. I learned how to fix an oven door lock switch. And I think that was a moment for me. Like, you can do anything that you put your
Mhm,
mind to. YouTube will teach you to do anything. And
mhm,
so there was this thing of, I don't need to rely on anybody for anything else. I can figure this out myself. And so for me, it was learning to stand up and not be dependent on another person. Because I always say that that's a healthy relationship, when two people choose to be together, but don't have to have each other to rely
right,
on each other.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So from trauma to healing. So again, this is where I'm going to put in a plug for family of origin work, to go back and say, why do I believe how I believe? Maybe I have complex trauma, which means trauma from another source before you were in this relationship? Not every partner does, but some do. And if so, you need to go back and look at those things that give you a propensity for a stronger reaction because of betrayal. You know, a 50-cent response, a $5,000 response to a 50-cent problem indicates that there's probably a pre-existing condition that was there. Not that every betrayed partner has that, but that can happen. Or do some trauma work with EMDR or somatic therapy or brain spotting or accelerated resolution therapy, something that gets in there and really changes how your mind thinks about what happened and what you believe about yourself as a result.
Right. Right.
Yeah. From lack of trusting self to learning to trust into your intuition. And I would just say, name the thing that is the fear, you know, find the roots of why you're not trusting yourself, where you're believing lies about yourself. And it's just starting with baby steps, just baby steps. What is it that makes me believe that I'm not worthy of having an opinion, or that I should have a voice, or that I should speak up, or that I have a right to not be attacked or told I'm crazy, or those kinds of things, little bit by little bit. And this one sort of leads into the fear, you know, always, you know, moving from fear to courage and faith, moving to this place of stepping out even when you're scared and saying, where does the fear, where's the root start? Where is just the little bits of things that I can start on? Maybe it's going to sit in a fast food restaurant by yourself. You know, maybe it's doing one of those very little things that is, maybe it's saying, I remember one of my first steps was to speak up about, well, I thought of two of them, not working for my husband anymore. That was a big one. I thought that was going to be akin to divorce, you know, because I wouldn't work for him in his company. But another one was about a dog. I just said, I can't handle the dog. And that was revolutionary for me to say, I can't handle something, because I thought I could handle anything, you know? So it was one little thing, just standing up for myself, one little thing at a time, one little thing. The last one, oh, no, not the last one, but from ignorance to education. So again, read. There are so many good books out there on sex addiction and betrayal trauma. Get yourself educated. Listen to podcasts about betrayal. Do a step study. Get educated about this. Even if, again, you didn't want to be there, I bet the first thing that my friend, if she was feeling good enough, is you're Googling. You're Googling to see, what is this thing and what can I do about it and how do I get help? How many women call their interventors because they're the ones that want the disclosure, you know?
Sure.
So once you get educated, it leads right to empowerment. And the last one, from alone to connection. And again, that's the one that is just huge. Get connected with other people, because I mean, your neighbor and some of your very best friends don't understand sex addiction. They think maybe it's a pedophile, there's something wrong with him. They don't get it. Sometimes your church groups don't get it and understand. But women that have been betrayed with other women that have gotten betrayed understand it and get it. Men that have been betrayed with other men that have been betrayed are all of a sudden now in common ground, understanding each other and supporting each other. So it's so important to first recognize and become aware of these areas that you're stuck in, and then shift into empowerment by doing the antidote to these things.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you've really given people a framework to work with in the sense that, like, maybe all of these don't apply to you, but certainly every partner can relate to some of them. And just starting with the ones that you do relate to and saying, okay, am I isolating? Who are the people that I can talk to? Who is my support system? And like you said, many times that's not family and friends, it's people, strangers. I mean, I'm still, 10 years later, very much connected to the ladies from my support group because they became my safe place. The joke was like, we don't know each other's birthdays or even last names, but we know each other's deepest and darkest painful moments. And so moving from that isolation to being in a community, being connected, like you said, getting in touch with a good coach or counselor, somebody who's trained in betrayal, can be life-changing for you in overcoming these barriers. So I love that not only did you give the barriers, but you actually gave people practical solutions that they can be empowered to step into. So speaking
Yeah.
of good help and good support, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, like, hey, I really like her, she seems
Yeah.
like somebody I could work with. Are you taking new clients? And if so, like, how would people get in touch with you?
Well, I am not taking new clients right now, but I have an amazing team that is, and we have plenty of good coaches and therapists that can meet that need. And we have, and I'm Stacey, Stacey at daringventures.com, or you can call Daring Ventures. But one of the things that I can connect people into is I'm the program director for Returning to You. And
Mm-hmm.
Returning to You is ideal for dealing with some of these barriers. It's a 1 week retreat in not East Texas, but it's in Mont Bellevue, and it's beautiful, beautiful Magnolia House. And we pamper these ladies, and we do intense therapy, intense groups twice a day. They can get massages. There's a restorative yoga. There's plenty of free time. You get access to the Daring Ventures library, where you can listen to all the podcasts and webinars that usually there's a cost to. We have a good library of books to read. We do art therapy. It is a really healing experience for these women, and we get very close and intimate. And we've had such good responses to that. And there's a page on Daring Ventures web page that's Returning to You, and sign up for a 20-minute interview with me to just talk about it a little bit, and if it's right for you. And it's just been phenomenal, and that's a good way to get up close and personal with me and some of the other amazing staff.
I love that. I love that. And every partner is so quick to say, oh, my betraying spouse needs help. I need to get him in treatment. It's just as important for you,
Yes.
like on the airplane, they say, put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
You are going to be encountering just as long of a journey as your partner is. So Returning to You is a great way to take care of yourself, to put your mask on first.
Yeah, because most women take care of their family first, and they
Mhm.
keep going and keep going and keep going. And this is a way to unplug for a week and take care of you. And you
Yeah.
deserve it. And there's nothing like it anywhere else in the country. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
We
the
need we need
pampering that you deserve.
we need one for like post traumatic growth Returning to You,
Yes,
where you can
yes.
still come and get that kind of support.
But that's the way the program is designed. And I'm glad you mentioned post-traumatic growth, because resiliency and post-traumatic growth is that's where we want to lead you, to look at these barriers and move past them so that there's life after betrayal. Because betrayal makes it think like that's everything in my life, and it's not.
Yeah.
It feels like that at the moment, but we want to move you to a place to see that there are other things that are
Mhm.
good about your life, and to launch into post-traumatic growth. And yes, any stage of the game, they could come do that. Even people who said, I've just never been able to leave this stuff behind. How do I do that? And yes, certainly that's a good thing that we can meet that need there for sure.
I love it. I love it. Well, Stacey, thank you so much. I feel empowered myself listening to you, and I feel like we were talking about ignorance. Even 10 years on my own journey, I feel like I never stopped learning. I never stopped growing. So I feel like your talk is just giving me more to think about, more to process. And I know that everybody listening probably feels the same way. So thank you so much for coming and joining me for this talk, and for being such an inspiration in this world of recovery.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Betrayal Recovery Radio. hosted by Dr. Jake Porter. If you value the content we've shared today, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. This helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. For more resources, visit APSATS.org. That's APSATS.org.